There is something nobody has ever told you with this level of clarity, and I need you to hear it. When a man truly falls in love, he panics. Not the way movies show it, not with flowers or tender looks. The real panic, the deep, bone-level panic, comes from the darkest place in his mind. And it shows up in a way you have probably misread as indifference, coldness, or rejection. While you were interpreting those signs as the end of something, he was silently testing you, in the only way his subconscious knows how. I am Liz Rose, a relationship expert, author, and researcher of emotional dynamics between men and women. For years, I have studied attraction, male behavior, emotional intelligence, and the patterns that bring people together or drive them apart. Today, I want to share with you what I have learned through my research, my professional experience, and the thousands of stories I have encountered throughout my journey. Here is the truth that changes everything. He does not know he is doing it. And that is precisely the most dangerous part of this entire story. Human beings do not act from pure logic or conscious intention. We act from layers of buried experience, from wounds we never named, from fears we swore we had overcome, but that are still alive, running quietly in the background of everything we do. The man who is testing you today, the one who pulls away, goes silent, pushes you out only to draw you back in. He is not following a plan. He is following a program installed in him long before you arrived in his life. You are not dealing with his logic. You are dealing with his history. And his history is full of moments where he trusted someone completely and that person left. Think about this. When we were children, we learned something fundamental about love, that it can disappear, that the person you need most can vanish. That vulnerability carries an enormous cost. That lesson does not erase with time. It buries itself. It becomes a force that governs every romantic decision we make as adults. Without our awareness, without our choosing, without our understanding, most people only see the behavior. They see the coldness, but not the wound underneath it. They see the distance, but not the terror that triggered it. So how does a man test the woman he is falling in love with? What is the real mechanism, the one living beneath the surface of words and visible gestures? The first test is the test of silence, and it is the most brutal of all. He stops writing, not for hours, sometimes for days. And you, who had grown used to his presence, who had begun to feel that this was real, suddenly find yourself staring at an empty screen. A message sent with no reply. A silence that fills all the space where there used to be warmth. And that silence changes everything because it is exactly where your mind begins to work against you. You start asking yourself what you did wrong. You replay the last conversation, word by word. You search for the mistake. You look for the moment everything shifted. And while you are doing that exhausting, painful work, he is watching, not cruelly, not with calculated malice. He is watching because his subconscious needs the answer to a question he cannot even articulate consciously. Will you stay when it hurts? That is what the silence is really asking. Not, do you miss me? Not, how much do you need me? The real question, the one buried deepest, is this. Are you the kind of person who leaves when things get hard? Or are you the kind of person who stays? In my years of research, I have seen one pattern repeat itself more than any other. Men who have been hurt learn to hide their need behind independence. They disguise it as coldness. They camouflage it as distance. They bury it under detachment. Because to admit that he needs you would make him vulnerable. And for a man who learned early that needing someone is dangerous, vulnerability is the most terrifying risk that exists. Here is the truth I want you to sit with. The more he needs you, the more he pulls away. The more he feels you could be the one, the more his defenses activate. The more he cares, the more he becomes the man who does not reply to messages, who cancels plans, who seems only half present even when he is physically right there. He is not pulling away because you do not matter. He is pulling away because you matter too much. And that terrifies him in a way he has no words for. The second test is the test of your emotional reaction. And this one is the most sophisticated, the most unconscious, and the most revealing of all. He will do something that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe he shows up late without warning. Maybe he says something that lands like criticism. Maybe he prioritizes something trivial over time with you. He will not do it to hurt you. He will do it to see how you respond when something stings. Most people misread this. They interpret it as carelessness, as selfishness, as proof that he is not truly interested. But what is actually happening is that his subconscious is running an evaluation, one that was designed long ago, in moments he barely remembers, to answer one question. Can she handle discomfort without destroying everything? Because somewhere in his story, someone exploded, someone shut down, someone walked out. And he learned that other people's emotions are dangerous, that when people feel deeply, things break. So before he gives himself fully, he needs to know if you are different, if you can hold the discomfort without turning it into catastrophe. And here is the part nobody tells you. If you react with panic, with pursuit, with desperation, he will not judge you for it, but something in him will close. Not consciously, not with a rational decision. Something will simply lock, like a door shutting without a sound, and the connection you had will no longer carry the same depth. That shift in him is almost imperceptible, but it changes absolutely everything. Through my work with thousands of women, I have observed that what looks like tests are really echoes of old wounds replaying themselves in new relationships. The man who is pulling away is, at some unconscious level, recreating the dynamic that hurt him most, not because he enjoys pain, but because part of him believes that if he recreates it with the right person, this time, it can end differently. This time, the wound can finally close. Without knowing it, without choosing it, you have become a character inside his oldest story. The third test is the test of your self-worth, and this is the one that hurts most once you understand it clearly. He will say something that minimizes what you feel, something that, coming from someone who claims to care about you, should sting. And then he will watch, not with open cruelty, but with the quiet stillness of someone waiting to see if you will fold. Will you say, "No, you're right. It doesn't matter," when it does? Will you pretend to be fine when you are not? Will you shrink yourself to fit into the space he is offering? This is where it gets truly dangerous. Because if you do shrink, if you sacrifice your own knowing at the altar of his approval, he will not experience that as a win. He will experience it as a loss, a quiet, devastating loss of respect. Because what he is actually looking for, even if he has never put it into words, is someone who will not break. Someone with enough solidity to say, "What you said affected me, and here is why," calmly and with dignity. Someone who does not need his approval to know her own worth. The deep irony is this. If you become that woman, if you are so complete that you do not need him to fill you, that is exactly what will make him fall all the way. There is something in the wholeness of another person that is irresistible to someone who feels fragmented. There is something in the peace of a woman who does not need you that activates the most powerful impulse in a man who truly wants you, the impulse to deserve to stay. The fourth test is the most invisible of all, the test of real time. Not the time you spend talking, not the hours you share together, the time that passes when you are apart and when something between you has gone slightly wrong. There will be an inevitable moment where something cracks just a little, not a full break, just a splinter, a misunderstanding, an unmet expectation, a moment where something feels off, but neither of you knows quite how to fix it, and he will wait, not because he does not care, because he is paralyzed between two equally powerful forces, the the desire to repair it, and the terror that trying will make it worse. Because in his history, attempts to fix things sometimes destroyed them further. Because somewhere he learned that reaching out in difficult moments had unpredictable consequences. What he will never say out loud is that in that silence, in that apparent stillness, he is waiting to see something specific. Can she hold the tension without destroying it? Can she live inside the discomfort without turning it into accusation? Can she give me space without reading it as abandonment? Now, I need you to stop here. Breathe. Look at yourself honestly, because what I am about to say is the part that hurts most, not because it is unkind, but because it is completely true. In these moments, in these invisible tests, most women fail, not because they are weak, not because they are not enough, but because nobody explained to them what was actually happening, because they reacted with the only thing they had available, their own fear, their own unresolved abandonment, their own history of loss dressed up as love. And here is the most uncomfortable truth of all. When two people with unhealed wounds meet, they do not heal each other. They activate each other. They become mirrors of each other's deepest fears. And what could have been love becomes a loop of provocation and response, of distance and pursuit, of hunger and rejection that never resolves. I have watched this pattern unfold more times than I can count. Two people who genuinely want each other, caught in a cycle neither of them chose and neither of them fully understands, each one seeing not the person in front of them, but the ghost of everyone who left before, each one projecting their oldest pain onto the newest face. And in that psychological fog, real love, the kind that could have existed, drowns before it ever gets the chance to breathe. But there is something more. Something no video, no article, no advice from a friend has ever told you with enough precision. There is a fifth test, and it is the test of your presence, not your availability, not how much time you give him, whether you are capable of being completely present with yourself when he is not there. What do you do with the space he creates when he pulls away? Do you collapse into it? Do you fill it with catastrophic assumptions? Or do you inhabit it with the quiet certainty of someone who knows exactly who she is, regardless of what anyone else does or fails to do? And here is something the ego never wants to hear. He feels it. He does not say it, but he feels it in how you talk about yourself, in how you describe your life, in whether you have things that matter beyond him, in whether your words carry a rich, complex inner world full of passions, contradictions, projects, fears, none of which have anything to do with him. A woman who exists entirely in relation to the man in front of her does not make him afraid to lose her. She makes him exhausted to have her. Most people do not see this. They believe that demonstrating total availability, making him the absolute priority, is proof of love. But what it actually demonstrates is emptiness. And emptiness, though it can attract temporarily, can never sustain the genuine love of a man who is searching, at the deepest level of himself, for a root, not a shadow that needs his light to exist. And now we arrive at the darkest place in all of this, the place where most people close the video, where the most sophisticated defense mechanism the human mind possesses kicks in. Denial. Because what I am about to say is something you already know, on some level. You have known it for a while, but you have buried it with a precision that would impress even the sharpest psychologist. You are also testing him, not in the same way, not with the same mechanism, but with the same intensity and with the same unawareness. Every time you do not say what you truly feel and wait for him to guess, you are testing him. Every time you act cold because you are afraid of seeming too needy, you are testing him. Every time you assume the worst of his actions before asking, you are testing him. Every time you check his consistency, because in your history, love always eventually left, you are testing him. Both of you are testing. Both of you are waiting for evidence that the other will disappear. Both of you are acting from your oldest wounds as though they are the present moment. And while both of you remain trapped in that cycle, real love, free love, love that does not need proof because it rests on trust, is impossible. You cannot build something genuine with the same materials you used to build the prisons that trapped you. So what do you do with all of this? The answer I have arrived at, after years of research, after sitting with thousands of stories, is not a technique. It is not a strategy. It is a direction. Become so fully yourself that his tests become irrelevant. That is the path. Not learning to pass his tests more skillfully, but arriving at a level of self-knowledge so complete, so integrated, that you are no longer playing the same unconscious game. A man who tests the woman he is falling for does not need her to pass his tests. He needs her to be so whole that the tests stop making sense. He needs to encounter someone who is not running the same program, someone living at a different level of awareness entirely. And here is where the mind betrays everyone. Because while you are both focused on the tests, on the games, on the patterns, on the silences and calculated responses, you are losing the only thing that actually matters. The real moment, the real connection, the real vulnerability that is the only true door into love. Love is not a test you pass. Love is a space that is created when two people have the courage to drop their armor at the same time. When two people decide, consciously, deliberately, to be seen. Not as they wish to be seen, not as they fear they are, but as they actually are. There is something more I want you to know before I finish. Something that transforms everything I have said into either a weapon or a liberation, depending on how you use it. When a man finally stops testing you, when the defenses fall, when the silence is no longer a strategy, but simply silence, when the distance is no longer a test, but just the natural space between two people who feel safe, that moment is quiet, almost imperceptible. There is no dramatic announcement, no grand gesture. There is only a different softness in the way he looks at you, a different quality of presence in how he responds when you speak, a new openness in the way he begins to tell you, without being asked, the things he has never told anyone. And what he will never say directly is that you reached the other side of his tests, not because you navigated them strategically, but because you were real enough that his defenses did not know what to do with you, because you did not fit the pattern, because something in your authenticity interrupted the program. You made the unconscious conscious. You helped him integrate the parts of himself he had been hiding. Not through effort or technique, but through notre compétence, notre sense, but through the simple, radical act of being completely yourself. You were so fully you that he had no choice but to become fully himself. And now, the final question. I ask you this not to judge you. I ask it because if you answer it honestly, it will change everything. Are you so completely present in your own life, so completely alive in your own inner world, so completely rooted in your own worth, that if he decided tomorrow he did not have the courage to love you, you would still be exactly who you are? That alone, that singular quality, that is what makes a man who is truly falling in love feel afraid. Not afraid of losing you in the possessive sense. Afraid of losing himself, of becoming irrelevant to his own story. Afraid that if he walks away, he will spend the rest of his life knowing he left the only person who ever made him feel completely seen. And this is where the mind betrays everyone. We are taught that love is about finding someone who completes us. But everything I have studied, everything I have witnessed, everything I know tells me something different. Real love is the meeting of two wholeness, two people who do not need each other to exist, but who choose to share their existence. Two people who do not test each other because they already see each other. Two people who are not afraid of each other because they know themselves too well to get lost in anyone else. The man who tests you when he falls in love does not need to be decoded or outsmarted or handled with psychological strategy. He needs to encounter a woman who has already finished searching for herself, who has already arrived at her own center, who is no longer afraid of what she will find there. When that encounter is possible, the tests disappear, not because someone won, but because there is nothing left to prove. I want to leave you with one final layer, the quietest one, the most real. When a man tests you, when he runs that unconscious protocol of distance and observation, there comes a specific moment, unnameable to him, where the test becomes something else entirely. The observer becomes the observed. The one doing the watching discovers he is being changed by what he sees. In that moment, something moves in him in a way he cannot control. It is not a decision. It is not a choice. It is something older than reason and more powerful than fear. It is recognition. That instant when something inside him says, "This person is real in a way the others were not." And after that moment, everything is different. Because he is no longer a man who tests. He is a man who chooses. The difference between those two things is the difference between a defense mechanism and an act of love, between living from the wound and living from wholeness, between repeating the past and building something new. That difference, that single, quiet difference, is the exact distance between fear and real love. Do not search for someone who will prove that you deserve to be loved. Be someone so complete that proof was never the point.